Third video. Language is a rule-governed system. Linguistics makes such rules explicit with scientific investigation. A famous anthropologist, Heath, in 1984 writes that language increasingly will be a natural part of the research domains of fields ranging from computer science to industrial sociology. In the days ahead, the foundational knowledge about language that has come from linguistics will be like certain principles of mathematics and physics and biology. Now, this was published in the annual article of Anthropology in 1984. Anthropologists study society, culture, behavior, and many other things from the perspective of humans. Anthropological linguistics is also a branch of applied linguistics. And we have 25 to 30% of the world's languages. We also have 1/6 of the world's population. Now, this question, keeping a language in perspective, where does one language stop and the other begins?
Keeping a language in mind, where does one stop and the other begins? That is, where does one language stop and the other begins? Let me clarify this question to you. Do we know that, let me put it this way. We have two languages, let's say Telugu and Tamil. Do you know any point in between these two states where these two languages are spoken? And when I say state, I'm just mentioning the names of the state. Where one stops and the other begins? Is there any boundary line where on the other side of the boundary line people speak only Telugu and this side of the boundary line people speak only Tamil? There is nothing as such. If that is true, then this is true for all the languages of the world. Get it? Then how do we count them? See this thing? Another aspect that I want to draw your attention to is the names that we give to languages are for the sake of convenience. And when we go further, right, then the two languages are more separable from one another. Now imagine a situation, I want to use this board. Imagine a situation where I want to give you separate examples of, let's say this is Assamese, okay, and then this is Bengali, this is Oriya, and this is Telugu. Are you familiar with the map of India, geography of India? Now look at this carefully. As you say, there is no point on the line where one stops and the other begins, right? But we still know that after Assam, we find West Bengal, where people speak Bengali. There must be an area on that line where people speak both of them. If we look at it more carefully, do people of this land speak one or the other or both or something else? Get this question? Similarly, people here at the borders of West Bengal and Odisha, do people speak Bengali, Oriya, both or something else? And likewise here. And then we can have the same continuum for many things where we have Tamil. speak Bengali, these people speak Odia, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam. If we are looking at some other continuum, we can say Marathi, Gujarati, Marathi, Kannada, Malayalam. You get it? There is an interesting story on that continuum. The convergence area, these parts are called convergence areas. One of the convergence area of Marathi and Kannada has resulted into a new language. Does anyone know the name of that? Konkani. Right? This language is no more a mixture of the two. People don't look at it as mixture of the two. However, that is how it emerged. There was a chunk, there was an area, and I don't mean it in a disrespectful way, where people didn't know what these guys are speaking. Are they speaking Marathi or Kannada? And nobody would ask these questions, and those people did not need to explain this to anyone. And this gives birth to something new, which is called Konkani. Now again, this name has nothing to do with this. That area is called Konkan area. People speaking either one of the two or both of them, or a combination of the two or something else, they started calling their language Konkani. And that's one of the official languages of this country now. Whether it becomes official or not, whether it becomes respectable or not, but this is the story of all the languages. Is this point clear?
Now this is convergence area. This one, it's the convergence area where people speak either both of the languages or both of the languages or some other language. That is convergence area. And then we see something from NCT, which is basically
Northern Malayalam, Central Malayalam, and Travancore Malayalam. Anyone here familiar with these terms? Anyone here familiar with these terms? Anybody speaks Malayalam here? You speak Malayalam. Great. Are you familiar with these terms? So there is something called Northern Malayalam spoken in northern parts, Central Malayalam, and then Travancore Malayalam. Now, the fact that this distinction exists within the language, they must exist on the basis of something. And right now we are not discussing that something. That something could be on the basis of social structure, on the basis of regional structure, or some differences within the language, on the levels of sounds or structure or something. Maybe all of them. But this distinction exists. And if you study more of these things as part of e-language and bring in lots of socio-psychological, socio-politicals into this thing, then you come to know that Travancore Malayalam is more prestigious than rest of the two. And again, the same thing happens to everything else. If we are talking about Marathi, then there could be lots of different varieties of Marathi. Broadly speaking, there are Pune Marathi and Nagpur Marathi. Pune Marathi is more prestigious than Nagpur Marathi. And the reason why I am mentioning these things to you is people who speak Nagpur Marathi, they don't feel good about it when you tell them Pune Marathi is more prestigious. am saying that this is more prestigious than the other. They decide these things among themselves. Okay? And again, there are a variety of reasons. I repeat this thing again to you. I'm talking about these things only for us to be familiar.
Now we talk about the language families in South Asia or India in specific. So there are 5 language families in India: Indo-Aryan, Dravidian, Austroasiatic or Munda languages, Tibeto-Burman. First is Indo-Aryan, second is Dravidian, third is Austroasiatic or Munda, fourth is Tibeto-Burman, and fifth language family in India is Andamese. Malayalam is spoken in Lakshadweep. Malayalam, one of the various languages, Malayalam is spoken in Lakshadweep. Now, Andamese has over 60 languages spoken in that area. Andaman. Andamese has over 60 languages spoken in Andaman. Tibeto-Burman spoken in northeastern part of foothills of Himalaya. Tibeto-Burman is spoken in northeastern part and the foothills of Himalaya. Northeastern and the foothills of Himalaya. More than 500 languages are spoken in that area. More than 500 languages are spoken in the northeastern part of India. Most of their names are based on the names of their tribes. Tribal languages, they're based not on the name of their states but their tribes. Okay. The Austroasiatic group of languages or Munda group of languages. It is spoken in modern Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, western part of West Bengal, western part of West Bengal. So this is West Bengal, and then we go to west, not east, western, spoken in the western part of West Bengal, in northern parts of Odisha. So this is Odisha, north, and then some parts of Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh. Okay. According to the formal properties of language, these are genealogical classification. This is genealogical classification of languages, as in language families: Austroasiatic, Indo-Aryan languages, Dravidian languages, Andamese languages. These are genealogical. This is the genealogical division of languages. And the formal division of languages says that it is divided into 3 categories, and 3 categories only: verb final languages, verb medial languages, and verb initial languages. Here we see medial written over here, so this is verb initial languages. Alright, now Dravidian languages. This is the genealogical classification. Dravidian languages. Some languages of this family are spoken in Hindu Kush mountain ranges northwestern Pakistan and Afghanistan. Indo-Aryan languages. Kashmiri, Hindi, Punjabi, Dogri, Odia, Bangla, Assamese. These are all examples of Indo-Aryan languages. Approximately 700 to 800 languages are spoken in under this division of languages, Indo-Aryan languages. The Sinhalese in Sri Lanka, spoken in Sri Lanka, is also an example of Indo-Aryan languages. Whereas the other part of Sri Lanka speaks Tamil, Tamil is a Dravidian language, right? Tamil is a Dravidian language. Another important and equally interesting fact about Indian languages. So all the languages spoken in India are verb final languages. The 1652 languages spoken in India, all of them are verb final languages except Khasi, spoken in Mizoram. It has a verb medial word order, that is SVO word order. English has an SVO word order, and in the same way, Khasi has Khasi, which is spoken in Mizoram, the other language, major language of Mizoram, has verb medial word order. Now, people who speak Sanskrit cause its death because, they didn't let people to learn the language. The ancient times, it happened because they didn't allow for others to learn that language. The reason why English is widespread is because it incorporated words from other languages, and neutralized those in the due course. There's a spelling mistake. Anyways, those neutralized those languages, those words, in the mean course of time. Jharna, Rosogola. Jharna is also an English word. Dhoti, ayyo, something like that. These are all Indian words in the English vocabulary. Sanskrit is an Indo-European language. It's not Indo-Aryan language, because Indo-Aryan languages like these, they are related to Sanskrit like the leaves of a tree, right? And so Sanskrit is therefore more related to Greek or Latin. Now, the concept of dialect. Dialect is a form of language which is peculiar to a specific region or a specific group. That is a dialect. Now, dialect could be a person or a group of people which speaks a particular variety of language. Let's say that variety is called the variety X, which is now a variety of a mother or parent language, which is called Y, and the same Y has various other language varieties, as in, let's say, Z or S or V, which is a variety of Y. Now, this S or V or Z or X, this is a dialect of this parent language, Y. That Y is the main language. Dialect can represent a social class. A particular social class may have a different variety of speaking the language, and so that dialect may be a dialect may be a representative of a particular or social class. Slang as a term is specific. Is something specific spoken by a particular group. So specific to a particular group. That could be a slang. Now, Devanagari was meant for Sanskrit, but later it began to be used to write Hindi, so the script was retained and the language died. There is no scientific distinction between language and dialect. They are socio-politically motivated ideas.